on my shirt.
What do we want to do? Something maybe pin it for now.
I predict right now there will be another one in the fall and winter of 1983.
I think we'd be good to go here.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that one went down to 40 years ago. There's Arizona, you know?
I'll give it a
Well, it tells where he went. He was going up to Wisconsin.
couple minutes here, so we're not started. Oh, no, it's 10 o'clock now.
To be there for it because of certain numbers and stuff. Yeah. That's the number 135.
All right. I think we're going to get started with our meeting here. Welcome everybody that's here and on the Zoom call. The Nebraska, Iowa MUFON meeting this September 16th, a scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity as the world's oldest and largest UFO phenomena investigative body. We aim to be the inquisitive minds seeking answers to the most ancient question, are we alone in the universe? And please mute when we're not talking. Because if I'm going to believe in aliens, I need to see something more than just fuzzy videos. In our Nebraska team, we've got Kyle Finley as State Director and Field Investigator, Fred Ziwi as Assistant State Director, ERT Representative and Field Investigator, Tamara Steyer, Chief Investigator and Field Investigator, John Barta as Field Investigator Trainee, or should be, he's no longer a trainee, I should have changed that. Yeah. Dave Paris is consultant, and Dr. Jack Casher is a consultant. On the Iowa team, we've got myself, Greg Anderson, a State Director, Field Investigator, STAR team member. Dave Kreider's a Chief Investigator, Field Investigator, and STAR team member. Dave Pratt, Field Investigator. Larry Moore, Field Investigator. Beverly Moore is the ERT Representative and Field Investigator, and Keen Tiedemann is a Field Investigator. MUFON News from Dave McDonald about the 2023 symposium. After over a year of planning, it's over, or it is, in most cases. A wave of melancholy flows through a convention center as the crowd dwindles, the signs are being removed, the tables folded, chairs stacked, and final promises to stay in touch are exchanged. And later on, I'll have more to talk about the symposium and the speakers. Now, here's a highlight this month, September. Yeah. The MUFON Journal this month has a 5-page article by Nebraska Field Investigator and Assistant State Director Fred Z. And it's a good article and stuff. So if you haven't got, if you can get it electronically right now and then people get it in the mail, you should get it soon to read. Also, in that same journal, one of the cases of interest is by Dave Kreider about a bright green object photographed over Iowa. And it's case 133392. And we're going to go over that case here in a little bit with Dave. And also, if you haven't seen or yet, MUFON's got a calendar for 2024. And the November calendar page has got a drawing by Dave Kreider that he did on a case in July, that happened in July of 66 in Muscatine, Iowa. So
I bought 2 of those calendars, $49. Really? They got mailed to me.
Yeah, they are a little expensive. They charge you like, you buy 2 of them, you get charged $10 shipping. It's like,
yeah,
whatever.
$20 a piece and $10
shipping.
I see people in that crowd.
You see people in the crowd?
Yeah, see the people there?
Oh, okay. They're little people. Yeah. And you can still get a free journal, and it talks a lot about MUFON and what it's all about. just go to MUFON.com/free journals/. Here's some news. Mike Six is the new state director for Oklahoma. He replaces Mindy Totfest. She's done a really great job, and she's still with MUFON, but she is the dean of MUFON University and will be continuing to do that work. So that should, and that's keeping her very busy. That's why they kind of handed the reins off to Mike Six. Here's some statistics. The actual Iowa cases for August or for September is actually 6 cases. I wasn't able to update the slide, so we've got so we have 42 cases for the year, and Nebraska's got 19. And then again, here's the slide showing the individual monthly case counts. And then the total for the year. And here's some meeting numbers that we had. Looks like we had like 22 in August last month. And the average attendance has gone up in 2023. And somebody here is getting up there. And as far as the statistics on who's ranked where in the MUFON, Iowa is now in 21st and Nebraska is 26th. The important part being that we're at 100%, and that we're never going to get much higher than that unless we get a slew of cases and solve them all in one fell swoop. We kind of compete with the other states. And investigative case review. Let's see what we got here. Kyle, you want to talk about your case? Kyle, come on.
The first initial case folder.
I think I got 3 on there actually.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so this one here, this was a while ago. I haven't really got a hold of the witness on this one. But yeah, it's over in Elmwood. Here we have the streak across the sky showing kind of multiple objects, and they kind of have like a trail going behind them. The main thing, you know, I did was look at different websites. I did Stellarium. I did this is satellite, I think like .net or something like that. And then there's another one like Spacebook, and they'll show like satellites going across there. So each of them, you know, I cross-checked them. They had different Starlink satellites at the same time. You know, it was 1120. Let's see. I think that's supposed to be 1120. But yeah, they're all at the same time there. Basically, I saw Starlinks going across the sky from the northwest to the northeast. So I basically just counted up to be a Starlink. Any questions? And then for when you take a picture at night, you'll get those streaks across there because it's in the night mode usually. So that's all I got for that one. Yeah. Oh,
okay. One thing I wanted to say about the Starlink too, you can see on this picture, it looks just like a line. They're real close to one another. This is right after they're deployed from the main rack that's launched in space. And then they kind of spread out. And then once they're spread out, then they go up to a higher altitude from the Earth and then start doing their job. So you can see the SpaceLink photos we've got in the past in the cases. You've got different pictures. They look like smudges, or they look like separate stars or lights following each other. And Fred, did you want to talk about this one?
Right. Well, this is a ERT case, and this is the witness wishes to remain anonymous, which I don't blame him. Sometimes, even when I used to come to my MUFON meetings way back in the days, and I talked about being taken up in a blue vortex and going through the ceiling. They go, "Oh yeah, Fred's that goofy guy. Think he's being abducted and taken up through the
Why
ceiling."
do you think it was just back then?
Oh, and they still hold the same prejudice against me. I'm just kidding. But that was always the joke about Fred going up through the ceiling in the blue vortex. But I found that this is one of my fun things to do. And in this case, actually, with the individual there, I found a lot of interesting things in this case. In this case, I'll be speaking about two of his events, which are being an ERT member, that there are a lot of markers, a lot of triggers for abduction in this scenario. So he spoke to me, and we've been chatting back and forth quite a bit as the weeks went over time. And this is one I said, when was your first memory? You know, and I kind of went through previous, have you had any strange feelings, any strange dreams back as a kid? He goes, yeah. And then, but this one, let's see, has to do, we'll talk about two events. And the one here, as you see, the first one has to deal with the one on the left, which is what he called, as an adult version, looking back at it as a childhood, he called it a Wookiee. You know, I didn't know what a Wookiee was. So I had to look it up, looked up, there was Star Trek, you know, back in the sixth, Star Wars, yeah, what did I say? Star Trek, Star Wars, you know, and then Star Trek, Star Wars, what's the difference? It's all about the alien, right? So, but in his case, so he said he was a child about 4 or 5 years old, and he said he said, of course, being a young child like that, he went to bed early. And I said, well, what time did you wake up? He said, well, I think it's like my dad was still watching TV, and it was around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, you know, in that time frame. So he said he woke, and he said I felt alarmed and was cautious, as though something was wrong. So he got up, and I said I didn't know why. So he said he walked out, left my bedroom and walked out into the living room. He said my heart was racing in fear. And I crept towards the living room and peeked around the corner to discover that my father was facing something, and that something was something of this nature, as you can see the picture there, as a Wookiee. But my father seemed unaffected by the bewildering sight and appeared groggy in his face, yet he stared ahead at the creature as though he wasn't alarmed by it. Here again, you know, people talk about being in sleep paralysis, but again, his father might be very well controlled at this point. So and then he said, as he was looking at this creature, it said it kept changing in forms in my memory. As I was holding it for a time, the time came to where this humanized upright became a humanized upright furry form. Here again, he was talking about the changing forms, you know, and that's very typical in an ERT case. People that would look at something and it'll change forms, and many times they say that the grays are phase shifting, or they shift forms and things of that nature. And I think it has to do with trying to appeal to the witness, that it's something that they're familiar with, maybe there's something they would catch their attention. And I don't know, should have asked, you know, did this Wookiee thing get you to look at Star Wars a little bit more so as he grew up? But anyway, so I said it kept changing form, and the memory is holding it for a time and has this humanized upright fur form. And he said all the fur length was all about around 4 or 5 inches in length. Said the light to mid-brown, dark blonde hair all over. Today I might describe it as a Wookiee, though obvious that's not what it was. Here again, the witness didn't know did I really actually see this? Was I actually, was it delusional? or was it real? He still doesn't believe that. Is it real? Is it not real? Is it real? Again, a lot of people, I've had abductees is saying, I'd rather have it being delusional, that I'm psychotic, and just give me the drug because I don't want to deal with aliens. I've had people talk about that. So then he said, my father, though apparently anesthetized, kept nodding occasionally as though some sort of conversation with it. And so evidently there was some sort of communication with his father, with this being. And I asked the witness, the experiencer here on this, I said, do you remember going back to bed? He goes, no, I don't even remember going back to bed. So here again, memory kind of comes and goes, and then I find that a lot of times too, when people actually delve into the experience, they might remember more. So anyway, he said, that's all I remember of that account. But then in November of 1990, which again, it puts him around in the mid-20s, said I was visited by a being while I was asleep. As I woke, I noticed several forms near me and by my bed. And I had that typical frozen, I cannot move. So when he awoke again, he was in what we call sleep paralysis, where he can't move. He was afraid, but something inside me decided to fight the paralysis. I struggled to free myself, and the being nearest me rose his hand as though communicating with me not to be alarmed, to relax, and not to fight. So he told me, I said, well, I texted him the other day. I said, oh yeah, I forgot. I said, what did the beings look like? And he said, it's like communion. So I'm looking at thinking the communion, Whitney Strieberg's, picture with the face on the book Communion, So I'm gonna have a whole different picture of what a gray was. He said it was a gray-like being, right? So I'm getting this whole full picture, and then I actually looked up the picture and looked at it, and the gray on the communion page of Whitney Strieberg, it has a big wide mouth on it, like a really big nose, and it had a wide mouth, and it had a protruding nose. Usually a lot of the people who describe ETs or grays, they have really no nose, just like two nostrils and a really small slit of a mouth and no hair. Well, in this case, he said, it's besides the blue, it said it wasn't blue, but it was pale. So it gets kind of the veil, but this is kind of like what a lot of people see would call a shadow being, in the shadows, so the being's kind of in the dark and back along the closet side. Then he said, while he was in this, coming aware of this being and holding him, and he said there was an eerie blue-green light slightly warmed the room. Like this light came in from the window, this blue-green light, Again, here's this light coming in through the window. And for me, that's like, okay, there's this beam. And then again, it's a controlling beam where they can project themselves in and out of the room. So, and he said the warm room, and what happened, the beam came in, and that's where he said that it just left, he didn't get a really good look at the beings, and they just left. And then he kind of went to the window and looked out and didn't see anything. He had the Venetian blinds and the things of that nature with the light coming through. So, but he also stated that he wanted to understand, to recall his memories, and he talked about being anesthetized and things of that nature. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, you would say, are we anesthetized, or, again, hypnosis? And I think he was wanting to understand more, how do we recall our memories more so? And I thought, well, that's a really good idea. Our only way of doing that is through hypnosis, with a very well-trained hypnotherapist that understands the many blocks and locks and things of that to draw out the experience, but he thought, well, maybe we could be anesthetized down to a certain level and regain our consciousness or something and be able to speak. But I've been thinking anesthetized, like in operation, you get totally knocked out, I mean, so you got anesthetized where it's a loss of consciousness. or puts you in a sleep state or unable to move. And so I said, well, evidently the sedation must be light enough that we can still recall, respond to questions and things of that nature in order to get to the answers or the regression. But he also thought the hypnosis would work with the anesthesia, if it was placed upon him. And then he went as far as to write SETI and NASA to see if these guys would actually do something with it, and so he said he wrote one and actually said he got an answer back, and then he said he thought maybe a grad student might take up this case, of that nature and work it. They said, well, what have you done? Are you going to do anything? He said, well, I haven't got the funds, I haven't got the money. And so they thought, well, how about a grad student? So they thought maybe that might be a possibility. But so I was kind of thinking about how people are, and I guess I was talking to the witness, that there's post-hypnotic suggestions given to the witness not to remember, and so these are the triggers by which, if you get hypnotized, I know I was, because one of the first things that came through me when I was hypnotized, I was told not to remember, and I don't know if those of you out there in Omaha, but there was a very good hypnotherapist, and I shouldn't even say a hypnotherapist, but he was a stage hypnosis type of guy in hypnosis and doing a stage show, at the Funny Bone of all places. Here he is at a comedy club, and he's a stage hypnotist. And his name was Jay Medicine Hat. I don't know if anybody remembers Jay Medicine Hat, but his show was, he's this typical guy. He walked up and goes, oh, you didn't expect me to be your entertainment for the night, right? Because he had this crazy outfit on, and a drink in hand. It's kind of like Ron White, coming out with a stogie and a drink. And he says, here, I'm here to entertain you for the evening. But he was very good. And some of the things that he would do would be, he would hypnotize these people. And one of the things he would do, he would take one of the guys who is probably the biggest alpha male that was so freaking male, it has a really big ego, and he made him a gay man, and he would go around and flirt with all the other guys around in the there at the Funny Bone. And I'm like, this is really, really crazy. And then he would say, he said he would create a horse race, and then he had the participants take their shoes off, and it says, and the shoes became the binoculars. And so the guys would say, and the race is off, and he would have all the people have a certain name for the horse, and it said, and then they would make very funny, strange names of the horses, and so is in the lane, blah, blah, blah. And these guys would pick up their shoes and they bring the shoes to their eyes as if they were watching the race, So this is all through hypnosis. So these guys are watching the race, and then they're all yelling and screaming, and like, yeah, my horse is, in first place, and yeah, and then they would say, he would say, such and such horse won. And so the one guy would jump up and, yeah, my horse won, and made all this money, then there's there's a disqualification for that number of horse. And of course, the guy get really pissed off and so forth. And then the other person would win, and he'd jump up, or vice versa. But one of the very funny things that he would do is at the end of the stage, and so if one of the girls was really good looking, he'd ask the audience, this girl over here, does she have any boyfriends or any, relationships or any, and they think, nope, she's clear, she's single. He says, okay, well, he would give a post-hypnotic suggestion, and he actually would tell her what it was. And he would say, I'm going to give her a trigger word, let's say just Jack, and you'll see what happens. And sure enough, he'd be talking, the show's just about over, and he would say, oh yeah, you remember that one thing, that event that happened, and then Jack so-and-so, and all of a sudden, this gal in the audience jumps up, runs down in front of him, and lays the biggest kiss on Jay Medicine Hat. And he goes, it's my show, this is my fun, so this is what you do. And then in one of the sessions that he had, it's one of the sessions that he had, that I was there, he hypnotized all the guys at the very end. Again, this is the post-hypnotic suggestion. And he told them, this is what he told them. You will go outside and you'll notice all these UFOs out in outer space, out in the land, and so forth, And I'm like, well, this is really cool, with the UFOs and so forth. So I'm watching all the people going out and watching all the people that have been hypnotized. And one guy walks to the front door and just peeks, and he comes running back in and says, I'm scared to death. There's a bunch of UFOs out there, And then, so I'm watching this other gal, and she goes out, and I traced out after her, and I'm watching, and she's looking up in the sky, looking, and she's just mesmerized. I'm like, and I actually walked up to her. So what do you see? What do you see? She said, I see they're everywhere. They're everywhere. There's craft everywhere going up in the sky. And I said, you're scared? She said, no, that's just really kind of interesting. But there's all these craft up there in the sky. So I'm looking at this as the abduction, that the ETs can give you post-hypnotic suggestion to do whatever it is. And even so, with his little Wookiee here, this individual said, I don't think that's what it was. And it is a delusion. It is something that maybe appealed to him as a young child. I don't know if he had watched Star Wars or was going to watch Star Wars, which would may have drawn him into this sci-fi phenomena, into the UFO field, and it may have done so. But that's my understanding of being taken over. And again, this whole idea of ETs coming and we see what we see. I've had screen memories. Again, this might be a screen memory. This Wookiee might just be a total screen memory that he saw. And his father was there. He's seen the same thing. Who knows what it was, but it was a being of some sort. But I also told him that Sasquatch has been known to be in a lot of ET type cases, and so he just took on the case of a Wookiee rather than a Sasquatch, but it could be a Sasquatch. But there's many times that in ET abductions that Sasquatch is in the background along with the reptilians and insectoids and so forth, along with the Greys. So there's a mirage of different beings and so forth. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to recover on this thing. And I think the Greys, I think on this one on the Wookiee thing, I found it very interesting. But any other questions about this?
Right.
Yes.
I'm willing to break character.
Sure, absolutely. Right.
First, I was 5 years old in 1969.
Right.
Didn't know what sci-fi was. I didn't know anything.
Right. Right.
It was facing the father, and the father was facing me.
Right. That's
So
true.
I saw the back of his fairly thin. Well, like I said, if I came on the corner, it was switching shapes and stuff, and you stopped at something about that color, but at the back side of it, and facing my father, and my father was out of it. Frank will, his blonde or whatever you call it, and just seemed to translate, and he just sort of like agreeing to
Right.
something. And bottom line is, after these experiences that I can't tell if they're delusion, dream, or real,
Exactly.
I'm left with something I think is an impression or a message.
Right.
More like an impression that we're in kind of a quasi-parasitic relationship with at least one sort of alien. I don't know about all the aliens that got out there, but this one that I was experienced and met seems to prevent extinction, because they're such an ancient culture. They're over 3 million years old as a species or something like that. They prevent their extinction by using something from us. Now, people would say, oh, look, if they're that advanced, they would have genetic engineering, they would do this, they would have this. Okay, but how advanced are they?
Right.
They aren't apparently so advanced that they use warp space, because they keep using time dilation to progress through what essentially is all of hominid experience. They've started with the early hominids, and now we're at us, and we're going extinct soon, or at least they project that.
Right.
And in the meantime, they do something with us with this tranquilization, and they somehow visit everyone. This is the weird thing that I'm left with. It wasn't just me, it wasn't just you. It's all of us. Every single person here that's
that was
been in all of hominid history for 8 million years, they've been back and forth visiting everyone, but because they use something like anesthesia,
right.
which doesn't allow memory formation. It's not so much they tell you, I don't want you to remember. It's just that your brain waves get all out of whack and nothing's communicating, and there isn't any memory to be had. But some people have memory anyway.
Right.
Some people who go through near-death experience or outright true coma come back with stories that could have only happened had they been aware of what was going on. You need to tap into this because the tool they're using to have this parasitic relationship with us is through something like anesthesia.
Right.
So I reached out to SETI, talked to Dr. Margaret Race,
right.
and asked, wouldn't it be worth our time if all of this is true, that we're being in a parasitic relation with some far-off advanced alien race, which is not so advanced that it knows how to warp this and can do genetic that. It needs us for something and it comes to us easily enough. But wouldn't we benefit if we really studied anesthesia, understood all the ins and outs of it, and maybe could prevent them from having this power over us if we want to? Maybe we don't want to. Maybe we enjoy this queer parasitic relationship to me. But I, for one, say, you know what? If it's your time to go extinct, go the heck extinct or find somebody else to draw.
Right.
I'm tired of it.
Right.
I've done this twice. It's screwed with my brain. And I'm left with all these ideas that I can't even communicate to people who are in the field. Well, she wrote back and said, it's unusual. I got to grant you that. But I'll wait till the other astrobiologists read the material. And if we find that there is a graduate student wanting to study anesthesia, because it is an open field still. Anesthesia isn't completely understood. Why is it that when you go under, the medical community says you will not have memories, but yet some people do.
Right.
And they say, well, that's because they weren't anesthetized properly. How do you know? I think it's our duty in the new field of anesthesia to know everything about deep coma all the way through consciousness, so that we could empower ourselves with the ability to maybe push these guys off, or at least tell them, respect us.
Right.
If you want our stuff, whatever the heck it is, ask for it.
Well,
Come to us and meet us one-on-one, exchange the technology,
right.
and we'll give you this freaking whatever the hell it is you need so damn bad.
But that's the point too, Russ. We're talking about consciousness, and that's a research that people don't want to deal with right now. It's a level of consciousness.
In the medical community, the first anesthesiologist I proposed this to, I said, look, you guys need to come to the table and say, some of you guys might remember stuff from surgery. He was like, no way. I'm not telling my potential patients that they could remember something. I tell them, and I will always tell them, to remember nothing.
Right.
Even though it's not true. Why would that be?
Right.
Because they have a chance of losing business.
Right.
So the medical community who could study anesthesiology won't do it because they're afraid to lose business. That leaves us open to this crazy, freaking relationship with these buttholes or whatever they are.
Right.
That we may choose to have or may choose not to have.
Right.
And I think the power we would grant ourselves comes through better knowledge. And
yes, and I agree, Russ. And Russ is one of many other abductees, and that these beings are going to have relationships or have had encounters with them through, and everyone's supposed to have one of that nature. So there's a lot of people who have that belief, you know, and I kind of believe it. It's all dealing with consciousness and things of that nature. And I don't know whether it's pro, con. I mean, is you know, there's the again, the questions are all out there. Are they out there for our betterment? Are they about, you know, about control? Are they about, you know, whatever they want to do on an evil construct about with us or not? So
in the 80s, I was assigned to 509 bombardment in the Air Force. They were the ones that dropped the atomic bomb. And later in my military service, I worked at White Sands Missile Range, and unfortunately, I chose to camouflage myself as a student with some of the materials there in the soil, and I ended up getting depleted uranium all over me and poison.
right,
But anyway, I have military experience in some of the areas where the terrestrial contact is known, and I have areas that I suspect are hot areas that can be controlled. And I have information like this.
Right.
So to me, it's no joke. And when I saw Graves, Ryan Graves get up and give his testimony, I realized I needed to step up and mention this weird stuff.
Yeah.
Because I believe in my heart, you've been visited, you have been visited, you have been visited, you have been visited, you have visited all the way back the 8 million years of our history, because it's easy for them some freaking how.
Right.
Oh, that's impractical, that's counterintuitive. I don't care what it is. This is what is happening apparently. And you're either being involved from it, or it's not affecting us at all, but they need something from us that they can't make artificially, or if they could make it artificially, it's a preference to have it off of a natural spring rather than artificially purified water.
Right.
So these are the important details I wanted to express.
Okay. Well, thank you, Greg, Russ, for talking about that, and we may be able to speak more with it later on in the session. So we'll get on with our presentations of our other sightings. Yeah. Well, thank you for speaking up. Thanks.
Good job. Russ. Oh, absolutely.
I got a lot to say.
Yeah.
You can do a presentation sometime on it?
Probably.
All right, let's get started back with our cases. Is Keen in the audience? No. I'll present Keen's case. This happened August 16th, 2023 in Des Moines. It says, I was taking pictures of the chemtrails and found a strange bright object in the chemtrails photos taken in succession. Oops. And here we go with the pictures. Essentially said on August 16th, when he was taking pictures that he saw those chemtrails. What he actually recorded was a lens flare from the sun reflecting off the camera lens. I attempted to contact the witness without success, and he closed the case as identified an IFO. And he said, the witness said, I took several pictures of the chemtrails like I always do because they are really heavy. I think that you're trying to stop us from seeing things in the air. This time paid off. And again, his conclusion, Keen's conclusion was it was a lens flare. And you can see the sun up here. And then across the picture, this green kind of dot, and here's enlarged over on the side. And it's pretty much an obvious lens flare.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did the person see this before they raised the camera up, or did they only see it through the camera?
They would have seen it after they took the picture. Yeah, they took the pictures, then they noticed it.
You get a lot of that. I realized it until later.
Next one, Larry. Larry, are you on the phone line? No. Larry's never on. Anyway,
Does that help or no?
help what? Oh, all right.
No. Okay.
All right. This happened in Emmitsburg, Iowa on May 22nd of 2020. The witness observed 3 lights moving northeast. The objects moved as a geometric triangular shaped object moving silently over town of Emmitsburg, Iowa, May 24th, 2020. It says May 24th, it was 22nd on the one part, at approximately 2:17, and the object maintained the triangular shaped pattern throughout the observation. Triangle orientation of the lights moving slowly overhead, northeast direction, no sound, points of light maintain geometric distance from each other. Interested in any records in radar archives directly over College Drive. And then Larry was unable to contact the witness, and after 3 attempts by phone, leaving message each time, he classified this as an insufficient evidence case. Next one's Dave's case 302.
Yeah, this case is from Burlington, Iowa, and it was an old case from October 16th, 2002. so it's about 20 years old. But he said that at 7 a.m. he was facing west with the sun at his back when he saw a silver metallic object come down very quickly, hover for a second or two, and then shoot straight up at a very high velocity. I was not able to contact this witness, so I had to give it information only disposition.
There's a picture of it right there in the center. There was an actual video, but it doesn't move around a lot. And so I just showed a picture of it.
Okay, thanks, Greg. And you want me to go on to the next case?
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah, right there. 392.
You ready? Oh,
What's that mean? Oh, it's pinned.
Yeah, I pinned it.
Dave, you go ahead with 392.
okay. This happened on August 18th, and this sighting took place at the I-80 truck stop near Walcott, Iowa. And Walcott is located between, yeah, thanks, Greg, between Iowa City and Davenport. And they like to boast that they're the largest truck stop in the world. And they have a huge sign that proclaims that. And it's different than the one Greg's showing, but they have a truck museum at this truck stop, and they have several restaurants. And Greg, did you have a video from this case or not?
No, there's no video attached. It's not on this one.
Okay, all right. Anyway, I met with this witness on August 22nd. It was a scorching hot day, just 4 days after the sighting. And during the meeting, he stated that after attending to some of his janitorial duties outside of one of the restaurants, he decided to move his personal vehicle closer to the building where he was working. And this, by the way, I wanted to add that this is a case that MUFON tagged as a case of interest. And this is the one that Greg was talking about, will be in the upcoming MUFON journal. So after he parked, he noticed a bright fluorescent green object that was hovering and pulsating in the western sky. He got off the phone with his wife and began to take pictures and video with his cell phone. Well, at one point, while video recording, a customer came to his side to see what was going on. And this is how the witness described the situation in his own words. He said, "A customer came to my side and said, 'Is that what I think it is?' I replied, 'Yes, a UFO craft.' Then the green fluorescent object began to move toward them and explosively brightened about 20 times its former luminosity. The customer's wife then said, 'Let's get the expletive out of here.' The witness never saw the object again, or those other two witnesses. And he said that when the object approached, he could see that the fluorescent lights were within a sphere of some kind, and you can sort of see it. I don't know if this is a camera artifact or not, but he said he witnessed this, that it was within this sphere. And so while at the site, the witness pointed out, where the object was in the sky using, points of reference. And so I took measurements of azimuth and altitude. And Greg, you want to put up that next video, a photo? Yeah. So you can read there what I measured as, azimuth and altitude and all that. It had an apparent size of 2 degrees of arc. So it's fairly large. And as a summary, I found the witness in this case to be a good observer and very credible. And the photographic and video evidence was compelling. I could find no conventional explanation for the pulsating fluorescent green, object that hovered up for 1/2 hour and then suddenly brightened and disappeared. Well, someone brought it to my attention that, could this have been a drone? And so I did a little bit of reading, and I found that drones are required to have navigational lights and anti-collision lights. Navigational lights don't pulse, anti-collision lights do. And they can be of various colors, including green. And I wasn't quite sure, after reading several articles, at one point they said that both the navigational lights and the anti-collision lights could be incorporated into a single system. And if there's anyone here out in the audience that is a drone operator, after I complete this case, maybe you can chime in on that. But either way, this explanation wouldn't seem to account for the time that it hovered, 1/2 an hour, according to the witness, the explosive brightening, and then the sudden disappearance. So I had to give this case a disposition of unknown UAV. Any questions on that or inputs?
I had it as IFO. Sorry about that. I don't know why. All right.
Yeah, UFO.
Yeah, UFO.
But
Yeah,
James Blair is out there. He knows what about it.
Yeah. Yeah, James is out there. He's a drone pilot, or got a drone license and stuff, 107.
is he here?
Yeah. He's done some drone work.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. But just go on to your next case.
Yeah, and then the last case I have, this came from Bluegrass, Iowa. And he stated that on September 2nd of this year, at about 9:10 p.m., he observed 13 objects in a line that sped up and slowed down. And he attached 2 videos with this report that they're really too faint for Greg to show here. And, he said they sped up and slowed down, but when I looked at the videos, I couldn't detect any change in speed. And this witness was very protective of his anonymity, because he just put 2 initials for his name, and the phone number he gave on his report was either an error or it was fictitious. So I had very little information to go on. But I did check the website Heavens Above, and I found that just hours, up to maybe a day before his sighting, there was a Falcon launch on September 1st, carrying 22 Starlink satellites. And during the time he would have video recorded these objects, they would have been at 12 degrees above the horizon in the southwest. And so I had to close this, even though I couldn't get a hold of him. I was pretty sure from what I saw and the investigation that these were Starlink satellites. So I gave it a IFO, man-made object. Any questions?
All right. This is one of my cases. This was happened on September 3rd, 2023, around 12:30 in Eddyville, Iowa. And the witness took a photo of a white object that she saw traveling in a straight line in the sky. The photo on the left here kind of shows you the white object that she saw. And then this is an enlargement on the right. The witness said that the steady, fast movement, sharp corners, long and silver, faster and higher than an airplane. In the second photo, it's right and lower than the eagle. And actually the eagle in the picture, it's not showing, was actually a vulture. So anyway, they were not sure of the elevation. And using flight radar 24, I was able to determine that a United flight going west to east over Oskaloosa, Iowa, which is 9.5 land distance miles away from the Eddyville, and it was 12.2 air distance miles, and the elevation was at 37,000 feet. And I used a program called Trig 7 to confirm the angles that I calculated from the distance. And Trig 7 is a program that previous state director in Iowa, Jim King, supplied. And essentially you can put in different things like distance and elevations and angles and stuff, and then get the other numbers that you need.
Air distance. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, I identified this again as an IFO, and it was that United flight. And the reason it just looks like the white and stuff, and you don't see outlines, is because at that distance you very rarely see the wings, but the tail on a United flight is blue. So essentially the tail blends in with the sky, and at that distance, actually it took me quite a bit to convince the witnesses that's what she saw. This next case took place in Waterloo, Iowa, and now this is kind of odd because the witness said it happened in 2022 during a lunar eclipse, and they started out with the date of November 7th, and then later on said, no, it was May 15th. Well, kind of wishy-washy on that, and I contacted the witness a few times after I did the initial interview, and the witness never got back with me, so I was never able to firm up the exact date. But anyway, the witnesses and daughter were out watching the 2022 lunar eclipse in Waterloo when they saw 3 times what appeared to be a starfish-shaped object. This object started high in the sky and went down, changing from white to blue and then red. The witness is not sure on whether it was May 15th or November 7th, just remembers it was around 2103. And he said, his stepdaughter and him were out there, and they saw 3 times, they saw what appeared to be an object. It was to the east of the lunar eclipse and high in the sky about 45 degrees. And what it would do is it would start out as a white object, and as it came down, it would change to blue, and then as it got closer to the ground, it would start out as red. And then a little bit later, it would appear a different spot in the sky, but still to the east of the eclipse, and it would do the same thing. And then it went back to a different spot. That's why he called it a triangle, because it happened in 3 different spots. His wife supposedly took some pictures, but she can't find them on her phone and stuff. It goes back, like I said, to possibly May of 22. So my conclusion was that the witness changing his mind on what the lunar eclipse they saw, and the fact that they thought it was in the southwest when he saw it, does not match the east direction that it was, and they were watching at 2100. The analysis of the different elevations of the moon, and the witness is saying that the moon and the objects were of different elevations, make me think that the May 15th, 2002 observation may be more accurate. However, the moon is only 10 degrees above elevation and may have been behind trees. I believe the witness saw something, but I cannot get any other information to witness, and I'm willing to say this is an unknown, as I cannot get the witness to respond to further contact. I'm calling this insufficient data case.
Greg,
Yes.
On your previous case, someone in the chat room wanted to know how to get a hold of Jim King's program.
Send me an email and I can forward it to you. You have to have Excel to use it. It's an Excel spreadsheet program. But send me an email to, if you got, I don't know how you got notified of the meeting, but you can get a hold of somebody and they'll get a hold of me and I'll get it to you. Yeah. All right. Now we've got some New Fork reports. Now, these are all posted since the last meeting that we had. So this one occurred in West Point, Nebraska. There were lights on the object. It was a triangle with greenish gray lights in every corner. This craft was flipping like crazy. I'm still freaked out. I saw a triangle-shaped craft with greenish gray lights, 3 of them on every corner. It came from the west of my house when I saw it, and it was flipping like crazy. It flew over my house really low. And in fact, I was just out of the front porch smoking a cigarette. And that's kind of typical, people smoking cigarettes, taking their dog out or stuff. That we get a lot of that. And I saw it and it flew right over my house. So essentially, and it was clear as day that it jumped up, and I have never seen anything like that in my life. That was in West Point, Nebraska sighting. This next Nebraska sighting, it was I'm still free. Okay, that's not right. Okay, this next one, Elkhorn, spotted a large white weather balloon at airplane height. My husband and I spotted what looked like one large white weather balloon about 10 to 30,000 feet, moving very slowly in the sky at the speed of a slow cloud, moving southeast. Object does not appear to emit light, but reflected sun. Was initially yellow-orange over.
There we go. I recorded on here. All right, can people hear me in the chat?
We all left.
Oh, we got 10 people on there, it looks like.
Yeah.
The audio is not showing any out though. Testing.
No lights on. Do they have to sign back in?
No, it should have kept going. I can hear you, Kyle. Okay.
Did I hear?
I think we're good. Hopefully you can
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, you don't want to see him, but you can hear.
Great. Well, anyway, as I was saying before we were rudely interrupted by the power outage gods, that it turns out it was essentially a stratospheric balloon. They're up here in this Waterloo's up here in this area, and that to the southeast was a balloon, and that's the picture that they took of it. So that's very common in using Flight Radar 24. It's easy to identify those sightings. Now the next one happened in Adele, Iowa. It says not an airplane, no sound. It observed a bright light to the south and the southeast of my location, traveling towards the north. And the object appeared to then turn directly east. Captured video. I first assumed it was a satellite until it turned and was quickly at a great distance from my location. And some of these I tried to do investigations on, just what little I can do based on the little information that we get. So some of them I just leave alone because they can't tell anything. This one was in Dubuque. And of course, they went outside at work break and they went to take a picture of the lights of the city and saw this thing on the upper left. And again, this was something that they saw after they took the picture. There's another lens flare. It doesn't look like a round object because it's behind all the leaves of the tree. So it's kind of, what you're seeing is just a kind of a weird version of it. It's another lens flare. This one happened in Council Bluffs, my hometown. Triangular craft with 7 lights under it, mimicking an airplane. There was a triangular craft flying a few thousand feet above ground, and there were 7 total lights under the craft. There were 2 flashing lights in the middle of the craft. It was flying at a very low speed that caused me to believe it was mimicking a plane. It appeared the size of a 777. There was no sound. For the 3 minutes I saw it, the world seemed to stand still. During that time I was driving. It felt like I was crawling instead of driving, but only while I was watching it. And UFO UAP news. This is a, there was a video here essentially showing some of the aliens, but it says unable to play it. So essentially what happened was they had a Mexican conference, and like the US had their conference in just recently, but they had one in Mexico, and they announced that they had 2 aliens, the bodies that they had found in 2017, and that they had done a lot of testing on them, and they had a couple pictures of the aliens. But like I said, I'm not able to, we're not able to show that right now. Kyle may be able to figure it out. Yeah.
Get rid of it or what?
Yeah. Well, anyway, the only thing about this whole thing is that Jaime Maussan was actually part of that group that announced it. And Jaime's had things in the past where he's kind of fabricated things. In 2001, he had something called, there was the alien in the freezer hoax. It was created national attention on the Art Bell show until it was investigated that the DNA doctor cited by Reed to legitimize his story was actually a mini mart employee in West Seattle. And that was something that Jaime Maussan was pushing. And just most recently, a couple of years back, they had a small, what they called an alien body that that was reported to be an alien of some type, and they found out that it was just a kind of a small child's body, that it wasn't alien at all. And that's why it's a little bit dubious with Jaime Maussan announcing this. So
I did see other information on that.
yeah, we'll have,
We can try to look it up.
yeah, we can, okay. We're gonna try to look up the videos here.
Stop the share.
Here they were. Somebody sent me this video of it.
This is the title of it.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah. Just show that. Let's just show that one. That's good enough. Essentially, it'll show the aliens.
We got like a million things going on here. This one.
Is it?
Oh, I can tell you all that's a hoax.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There's a llama bone, it's a llama skull come backwards.
Well, don't tell us right now. You gotta wait till we see the thing.
Where did you read that or find
It's
that?
available online.
Mexico pulling back the curtain on what they believe are alien And put 2 of those corpses on display. Take a look. These small mummified specimens were unveiled at Mexico's first ever UFO hearing yesterday. Yeah, it looks like ET. You're right. The alleged alien corpses were found in Peru. They're believed to be 700 to 1,800 years old. They only had 3 fingers and elongated heads. X-rays of the aliens were also shown, and experts say one of the bodies has eggs inside of it. Maybe we could have alien babies.
A lot going on in Peru.
Yeah.
Right. So is this real? Do people believe this?
I don't know.
As Leslie Lopez says, we want DNA samples.
Yeah. And then we're eventually going to find out that aliens look nothing like we think they look.
No.
It look nothing like ET.
It looks like a stone carving. It really does.
It does.
What is that?
I don't know.
And
That's the sad part. This is over several years old as a hoax.
Yeah, so that was essentially the video, one of the videos that was out there on that. And we had some comments about it. Of course, them saying it was a hoax. So did you want to
Yeah, if you Google, I think you can probably find it if you simply Google llama skull, llama like animal,
yeah,
llama skull alien, some configuration of that, and through a Google, you'll see that this actually appeared in 2001 and it was challenged. It was X-rayed. It's got a series of skeletal bones in there that do not make any sense. It's a patchwork of skeletal bones of different sort of sizes of humans and whatnot, to make the story short, and a llama skull turned backwards, and then all crafted and doctored up to look like some sort of mummified alien. But it's an old hoax. It's years old, and the fact that it's making rounds infuriated Ryan Graves. Ryan Graves was deeply embarrassed that that was attached to what he was trying to do.
Right.
with the Mexican government.
So they had 2 of them. Why did they get 2 of them that look alike?
Just build 2 of them.
2 of them then.
who's better than one?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of those old, they had like the freak show thing, circus things in the past, and they take different animal parts and put them together. Oh, here's a giant, here's a, small person, here's a guy with 3 arms or something, they would just mix pieces of animals together and
And kind of quote what Bill says at NASA, we need to do this for science and not sensationalism.
I think for giants, a lot of times they would use like elephant bones, because they kind of look like, they could be a human bone, but it's just, very big. So they would like, oh, this is the bone of a giant. It's like, oh, it's like an old elephant bone.
I'm a little disheartened with what the director of NASA said when he said we need to move away from sensationalism and get towards science. And then he said that nothing in NASA can prove any of this, when he should have at least mentioned that, Neil Armstrong said in a private channel, hey, they're on the rim of the crater. There are things they could mention that happened in the time frame that they were not part of the NASA organization. Anyway, that's a
Right.
discussion.
Surprising that the Mexican government was released without vetting it first.
Right. It was a reporter that pulled the wool over their eyes.
Well, Jaime Maussan is a kind of a hero in Mexico as far as the UFO community is concerned. And I've actually personally seen him hoax something.
Really?
Yeah, I was in a conference, UFO Congress conference in Fort McDowell, Arizona. It's east of Phoenix. And that morning I saw him walking back to the hotel with his drone and stuff. So later on in his presentation, he's showing pictures of all these UFO craft and stuff, and he's got dates on every one of them. Except he comes along and then there's a picture of this blurry, what I obviously knew was his drone, blurry drone without a date, and he included that in his slide in his PowerPoint slides. So I was just like, what the heck? I mean, I didn't know why he needed to do that, but it was obviously his drone. So actually, I guess we really can't trust anything that's got Jaime Maussan involved. This next deal was at the MUFON UFO symposium is over now, but it was in Covington, Kentucky, which is just on the south side across the Ohio River from Cincinnati. And here's some of the speakers, and I can tell you a little bit about what they talked about. Let's go back to the slide. We had David Paulides that was there, and he's best known for his investigation into missing persons in the national forest and the national parks and remote areas. And one of the interesting things was in his talk was he talked about a cluster in Colorado of all elk hunters that all had German ancestries. So I don't know if there's just a lot of Germans in Colorado, but that was interesting. He was also the keynote speaker. Then you had Grant Cameron. He talked about consciousness becoming reality. And he says, our thoughts become reality and is much more complex than we think. And that the aliens want to be noticed. They appear to us to be noticed. The more people talk, the more zeitgeist and that there is. It's zeitgeist. I had to look it up. It says scholars have long maintained that each era has a unique spirit, a nature of climate that sets it apart from all other epochs. In German, such a spirit is known as zeitgeist, from the German word Zeit meaning time and Geist meaning spirit or ghost. Then the next speaker was Yvonne Smith. She talked about similarities and abduction experiences that have a lot of similarity and seem to be a lifetime experience for many. And on future prophecy from abductions, 39% were given as an environmental message. 34 were told that of future natural catastrophes, and 53% were shown a vision or video or picture, and 25% were told their mission on Earth. The next, Thiago Luiz Tichetti was the next speaker. He covered over 3 decades of Brazilian UFO, 60 research cases, and 100 field research case, and did not cover the Virginia ET, however. But that was covered in the MUFON symposium notes. Avi Loeb, who's talked recently about the metal debris that they found on the floor of the ocean. He talked about the Galileo project and the spherules that were found there. Barbara Sabani, she talked about types of radiation. Her talk started out very technical, and then she finally talked. She talked about the difference between ionizing and non-ionizing radiation, and eventually, we talked about the Cash Landrum incident. Her father, John Schuessler, wrote the book on the Cash Landrum incident, which happened in Texas in 1980. And Dr. Michael Masters, he talked about patterns. Looking for patterns in UFO cases may provide information on whether they are friend or foe. They have not eaten us, so that leans toward away from foe. And that only 5% of 3,500 contactees and abductees report a negative experience. This seems to indicate they may be friends. Linda Zimmerman was next. She had an interesting talk, and she was talking about animal reactions, and she discussed the ways that animals react to the presence of UFOs and what mechanisms may be in play that allow the heightened sensory reaction. And she talked about one of the examples she gave was from Iowa. It was called the muscatine rabbits. It said in 1981, a toll taker working the night shift went to feed carrots to some wild rabbits and found them lying in a prone position. This was not normal, as they would usually scatter when he approached. He then noticed there was an egg-shaped craft with an orange glow moving in step-like patterns until it cleared the bridge and took off. And then another, Mike Cleland, this next speaker, he was known as the Owl Guy, and his talk was about owls and their connection to UFOs, and he had many stories of owls, including his own experiences. Next speaker was Raymond Zavansky, and I didn't personally see this presentation, but the symposium proceedings, he asked, when the expert evidence and new evidence is considered together, it appears that aliens are interacting with our citizens in ways that are unacceptable by Earth standards of conduct. But does the end of theoretical new cosmic consciousness for the Earthlings justify the means? And then the last speaker was Terry Lynn Keel, and she delves into one strange and unknown happening that has baffled researchers, historians, and skeptics alike about the topic of spontaneous extraterrestrial healing relayed by countless people around the world. We will explore the depths of the unknown and attempt to unravel the mystery that continues to confound us. So that was the speaker panel they had this year.
Greg, which one did you feel was the most informative of all the presentations?
I liked David Paulides, I liked Grant Cameron's, and I liked Linda Zimmerman's. Those three were the most informative as far as, or maybe not most informative, but the most interesting to me.
I would love to see if does anybody have the tape of the
you can get on if you get on MUFON.com and you can get MUFON TV. I think they've got the conference on there. I don't know if they have this year's conference though, so I'm not sure. But they do have past conferences. You might try that.
Okay, we will. Thank you, Luck.
Now, last time I talked a little bit about the 1977 UFOs, the metal debris that was dropped from a supposed UFO in near Big Lake in Council Bluffs, Iowa. And since then, well, I was doing some social media stuff, trying to get some information on this 77 sighting, and somebody made me aware of this case. And this is a 1974 UFO near Big Lake, 3 years before the metal sighting. And you can see this yellow star here is the where the 77 metal was found. And this is where the witnesses saw that what they show on the left side was a craft with red lights. And he goes on to say, my girlfriend and I were camping in the backyard in the west end of Council Bluffs, Iowa. The date was July 7th, 1974. I noticed an object high in the sky, traveling from horizon to horizon like a satellite, except it was red and traveling somewhat faster and moving side to side in a wave motion, not a fixed pattern, but not exactly random either. It went much slower than a meteor. We stood up from our cots to watch the skies better. A short time later, we saw a disc-shaped object with red lights on its perimeter from about 2 miles. It seemed to be moving above the trees near the Missouri River or following the river itself. It was not quite hovering, but moving slowly while tipping on its sides and demonstrating to us that it was something very unusual. We watched it head south until we lost it below the trees. And we stayed alert and debated if we should go to Lewis and Clark Monument, a park on the bluffs overlooking Council Bluffs in Omaha. About 5 to 10 minutes after last seeing the object, it flew almost directly over our heads about a block away. Now going north and still just above treetop level. We lost sight of it and decided to go ahead and drive to the park. On the way, we were driving through Big Lake Park. I was keeping watch. I saw the object coming in our direction, still at treetop level, except I had an eerie feeling that it was coming for us. We panicked. I wanted to hide under the train bridge near the tennis court, and my girlfriend stopped the car about 50 yards short of the bridge, and we ran to and under the bridge to hide. I've never experienced that kind of fear before or since, but like a couple of prairie dogs, we felt compelled to peek out and see more of the incredible object. So we did. It was hovering above the large cottonwood tree near the tennis courts, about 50 to 75 yards away from us. It was still dark out. The disc looked about 100 feet in diameter with a large red rectangular lights flashing in sequence around its edge, which seemed to be about 15 feet thick. As we watched, frozen with awe and fear, it dipped its edge while hovering. One of the red lights went out, and in its place, a beam of light shot out and shined directly at us. The next thing either of us remember is that it was now daylight, and we were back in the car driving towards our original destination of Lewis and Clark Monument. We called police, and they said they had a report of something in the Missouri Valley, Iowa area, about 20 miles to the north. Animals behaved strangely. Either they were oddly quiet or behaving wildly. When we drove back from the Big Lake Park, there were people there who said they saw nothing. And that's kind of typical of a lot of sightings. You'll have a group of people, and some people will see things, some people won't. So whatever mechanism that's used with that is not known. Now, another thing that's going on is with the 1977 stuff in the metal, is that Netflix is thinking about doing a kind of a TV show about it. I don't know if it's just one episode or if it's just one documentary on it. But they contacted me about trying to find some of the witnesses. I found some of the witness's daughter, and I can't get the witnesses to say anything or talk, but they still say, since Jacques Vallée and Dr. Gary Nolan are involved in the project, it sounds like they're still going to go through with it. But I don't know if they'll contact me again about it, or just bring in their team and do whatever filming they have to do. So that'll be interesting. Hopefully, I plan on that. Also, I was talking to a friend of mine. I'm planning on getting some metal detectors and going out to that area and seeing if I can find any metal from the craft. I have a sample of it that was given to me by some Nebraska investigators that investigated it back in '77, and they bequeathed it to me. So I'll hold on to that.
Bring it to a meeting.
I have brought it to meetings.
Yeah, last meeting.
Yeah.
Oh. Shit, so I was here, you see, I'm old and my memory's bad.
Yeah. So, and so where are we at? We got, here, let me read this, just a second. I can read this. Here's something that Roger Anderson brought to my attention today. It's from an old APRO bulletin, and one of our Nebraska members was Gary Lambert, and essentially there's a article in the UFO bulletin that says Gary Lambert became interested in UFOs at around 14 years of age. There was a series of sightings in Nebraska. Since he had studied UFOs as a hobby, traveling extensively to interview witnesses and gather data by comparing the collected data at home, Lambert believes he detected patterns that enable him to predict some events that are going to come about. I knew in 1978 there would be a UFO flap that would last through the fall and winter, and it happened just like I said it would. I predict right now that there'll be another one in the fall and winter of '83. Gary also says that the sightings are not random, but that the UFO occupants, select some person because of the symbols recorded to convey their message. He claims some symbols have to do with things that are coming in the future that our dangers are. For instance, before the oil crisis of '70s, we had blackouts repeatedly in the '60s. We also had oil-based products left behind where UFOs had been. Substances like asphalt or oil or tennis courts would be torn up. Once the oil shortage began in '73, they no longer had to warn us about it, so they started switching their signs. he believes that the recent rash of cattle mutilations is a sign that a food shortage is coming, and says it has already started to surface in places like Cambodia and Africa. Gary also believes that the town of Masoni, Wisconsin is a prime target for UFO sightings. He says that the numbers 1, 3, and 5 are important, and that they like the words water, bridge, Lincoln, and the French word for water, O. Masoni is near a tremendous amount of water. The Big and Little O Plain rivers run just south of town. Highway 153 runs through O, and there is a Lincoln Street and a bridge. Lambert of Omaha, Nebraska is currently doing some work in the Masoni area, but that's not the only reason he's there. He believes something big is in the air, and when it happens, he plans to be around so he doesn't miss it. And so that was, like I said, in the APRO bulletin from goes back to, like, I don't know what year this was. It was the volume 30, number 3. So of the APRO bulletin. So if anybody's got that, they can look at it. But yeah, Gary's one of the past members. Gary also had some interesting experience with around the same time as Herb Shermer and Ashland had the major sighting in Nebraska. He had some similar experience, and so. Anybody have any info stuff on the let me stop the share here. Anybody in the Zoom side, or anybody have any questions or anything they want to say?
I noticed you mentioned the number 1-5. That's very close to 137. 1 over 137 is one of the natural constants that occur throughout physics. So 1 and 3 certainly tracks. 1 through 5, maybe something, but 137 has been discussed a lot.
Yeah, 1 over 137. Yeah, the
Also 007.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was talking to Roger earlier, and I said that my father's initials are CEA, and he always used the numbers 5 and or excuse me 3, 5, and 1, but then he would reverse it 1, 5, 3 and use that as his identification that he would put on his tools and other objects. And so it made me think, well, perhaps my father was an alien. I don't know. Anyway, like we're open for questions here or comments. Nobody yet?
I wish Greg a happy birthday.
Oh, yeah, my birthday was last Wednesday, so yay. So
Roger going now, that's old hat.
yeah. Yeah. So let's go. Let me share the screen again here.
Do they know what the next seminar?
The next MUFON seminar, it's going to be in essentially Irvine, Texas, or in Irving, in the Dallas area. And yeah, so that's the next conference.
What was the case? What was the case of the year?
The case, they had 5 cases. I don't have that right in front of me and stuff. I'd have to, yeah. And they weren't as interesting this year as the cases of interest as they were last year. And but there was one where somebody got sick. They were investigating a site and they got sick from it and stuff. So that was, kind of interesting. Not for him, not for the investigator, but yeah. And the next Iowa, Nebraska meeting, if we have it, is October 21st in 2023. So.
Stands out very strongly. The reason why MUFON was established in 1969, an outstanding story that might that data to why they decided to appear as an organization?
I missed part of
They're
that.
not still not an established date on MUFON, I just noticed that.
Oh, yeah.
Project Blue Book, were canceled in 1969.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially what MUFON says is they're doing the Air Force's job since 1969. But MUFON started out as the Midwest UFO Network, and essentially was Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, and a couple other states. And then as it expanded, that was in and then it expanded and where it became more than the Midwest. So they changed it to the Mutual UFO Network so they could still use MUFON and stuff. And then it expanded internationally, and now there's like 6,000 members of MUFON and stuff. It's quite large now.
Fred, I've got that whole thing on my computer. I just printed out the 2 pages where his story was on the front page, but for whatever reason he wanted that. That went out of business in like 87. They quit having APRO. I belonged to that and NICAP, and they're both no longer because of MUFON.
Yeah.
You got a file to send it to you.
Yeah, I can send this to you.
Oh, the file.
All right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think I can. It's on my front page with the different things, and I thought,
All right.
why do I have this? And this click, and I'm like, oh, there's the story in Nebraska. But send that, if you can take a picture of the story, so you can.
That's,
figure it out.
I guess unless nobody else has got any questions.
I want to have one,
Yeah.
Jim in Kansas City. What happened to the old APRO cases? Were they incorporated into MUFON? Or
No,
do you know?
I don't think they were. That's a good question. No, I'd like to get some of the older bulletins. I was a member of APRO in the mid-70s, but it's kind of just a journal member. I didn't do any investigation. But I'd like to get the some of those older cases. I had one of the cases that had Travis Walton in it, one of the APRO bulletins, it was all about him. I brought it to a meeting that we had several years ago, and it ended up disappearing. I forgot about it, and then the next week it's like
That's what this cover, this one was, Walton Case Still Cooks.
Yeah.
So it's on I've got this bulletin
Yeah.
on my computer.
Yeah, that's
I don't know why, and that's when I looked it up yesterday and found this, and I thought, well, I'll print out the one with the Nebraska case, but I've got this whole thing, so where it has the Walton case too.
Yeah.
I'll print this out for the next time with the whole case.
All right. Okay, any other questions? All right. I think we're gonna wrap it up then. Thanks to everybody for attending. Okay, I said Preston Dennett seems to have access to old APRO files, so maybe I'll try to get a hold of Preston Dennett and find out where he got his. All right, thank you.
Just have Roger, he's got them all. No,
Yeah.
he doesn't. You just
Bye.
have to find this.